You know what? I was having my morning coffee yesterday, my usual dark roast that keeps me sane in this insane world, scrolling through the usual political chaos when something made me nearly spit out my drink. Not because it was funny, trust me, nothing about this is funny, but because I realized most Americans have absolutely no clue what just happened. While everyone was distracted by holiday shopping and arguing about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie, Trump quietly orchestrated what might be the most dramatic foreign policy shift we've seen since the last time he decided to pick up the phone and call a foreign dictator. But this time it's different. This time, the consequences are going to hit your neighborhood, your community, your daily life in ways you probably haven't even imagined yet. So let me paint you a picture of what I discovered, because when I dug into this story, and I mean really dug, I found 3 separate threads that, when you pull them together, reveal something that should terrify anyone who cares about American democracy. We're talking about direct threats to sitting National Guard members, billions of dollars in taxpayer money flowing to terrorist organizations, and a sitting U.S. president essentially offering regime change services like he's running some kind of geopolitical Uber. But here's the kicker, and this is the part that kept me awake last night. These aren't 3 separate stories. They're all connected. And the person connecting them is sitting in the Oval Office right now, making decisions that will reshape America for decades to come. Let me start with the phone call that stunned Washington insiders, though good luck finding it covered properly in the mainstream media. Picture this: Trump, sitting in the Oval Office, picks up the phone and dials Nicolas Maduro directly. Not through diplomatic channels, not through the State Department, but a direct line from the most powerful office in the world to a guy who's basically turned Venezuela into his personal piggy bank. The conversation, according to my sources, White, and these are sources who've been in the room for conversations like this before, went something like this: Nick. And yes, apparently Trump called him Nick, like they were old golf buddies. Your time is up. Step down now, and we guarantee you and your family safe passage out of Venezuela. This is your one chance to exit peacefully. Now, I've covered a lot of diplomatic negotiations in my time, and let me tell you, that's not diplomacy. That's what mobsters call an offer you can't refuse. But here's where it gets interesting. Maduro didn't hang up. He didn't laugh. He actually responded with 2 specific requests. First, he wanted more time, a face-saving way to step down without looking like Washington's puppet. Second, and this is where my jaw hit the floor, he wanted to give up his political role as president, but keep control of Venezuela's military forces. Think about that for a second. This guy wanted to become a military strongman with no official title, but all the guns. Trump's response? A flat rejection that would make Gordon Ramsay proud. No half measures, no backdoor deals, no letting Maduro keep any real power. Then came the moment that should have been front-page news everywhere. A second phone call was scheduled for the weekend. Maduro simply didn't show up. Radio silence. And that silence? That's the sound of a dictator either digging in his heels or scrambling to figure out whether the American president was actually serious. But Trump wasn't bluffing. He announced a major national address about Venezuela. Not a tweet, not a press conference, but an Oval Office moment. The kind reserved for declaring war or announcing the death of bin Laden. That's when I knew we weren't dealing with typical political theater. Now, you might be wondering, Stephen, why should I care about some dictator in South America? Well, buckle up, because Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserves in the world, larger than Saudi Arabia. We're talking about enough energy to reshape global markets and, more importantly for Trump's base, potentially lower gas prices at American pumps for decades. But that's just the appetizer. The main course is what Trump started calling reverse migration. And folks, this is where things get really wild. Instead of continuing to absorb waves of new arrivals, Trump envisions a fundamental reversal of immigration flows. People who came here under previous administrations, particularly during the Biden years, would be encouraged or required to return to their countries of origin. I know what you're thinking. That sounds impossible. But Trump's logic is actually frighteningly coherent. If you stabilize countries like Venezuela, if you remove corrupt regimes and replace them with functioning governments, you eliminate the root causes of mass migration. People don't flee stable, prosperous countries. And that brings us to the announcement that's affecting thousands of families right now today as I'm speaking to you. Trump paused all asylum decisions, not delayed them, not slowed them down, paused them indefinitely. When reporters asked how long this would last, Trump's response was chilling in its simplicity. A long time. Could be a very long time. No timeline, no review period, just stopped. But here's what really should keep you awake at night. This wasn't some random policy decision. This was a coordinated response to two specific incidents that rattled national security officials and gave Trump all the justification he needed. First incident, 2 National Guard members were shot in Washington, D.C. The shooter, an Afghan national who entered the United States under Operation Allies Welcome, that rushed program from the chaotic Afghanistan withdrawal. Second incident, another Afghan national, also admitted through the same program, was arrested in Texas after posting videos of himself building what appeared to be an explosive device. 2 incidents, 2 people who were supposed to be the good guys, the ones who helped American forces, the ones we owed protection to, and now they're involved in violence on American soil. Trump looked at those cases and said, "This is exactly what we warned about." But wait. It gets worse. When investigators started digging into how these individuals were classified in federal databases, they discovered something that should scandalize every American. The FBI and other agencies have been classifying people from Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Morocco as white or Caucasian in their records. Yes, you heard that right. Why? Because of an outdated regulation from the 1940s that was never updated. Think about the implications. When politicians or media outlets cite FBI data about which groups pose the greatest security threats, that data has been fundamentally skewed for decades. It's a statistical shell game that's hidden the truth from the American people. And speaking of hidden truths, let me tell you about Minnesota. While all this was unfolding nationally, something absolutely staggering was being uncovered in Tim Walz's backyard. We're talking about a fraud scheme so massive, so brazen, that even seasoned investigators couldn't believe the scale at first. Here's what happened. Individuals within Minnesota's Somali community, working through networks of shell companies and fake clinics, systematically defrauded state and federal programs designed to help vulnerable populations. Medicaid programs for children with autism, nutrition assistance for low-income families, mental health services, all turned into cash machines. The scale? We're not talking millions. We're talking billions with a B. More money than Minnesota spends running its entire prison system. To put this in perspective, that's enough money to fund every public school in Minneapolis for multiple years. And where did significant portions of this money go? Overseas, back to Somalia, and according to federal prosecutors, in some cases directly to Al-Shabaab, a terrorist organization with ties to Al-Qaeda. When reporters finally cornered Governor Walz and asked if he took responsibility for this massive fraud happening on his watch, his response was telling. Instead of ownership, instead of accountability, he played the racism card. He accused anyone raising concerns of being unfair to an entire community. And that, folks, is exactly the kind of response that drives everyday Americans absolutely crazy. You're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to express concerns. The moment you do, you're labeled a bigot, and the conversation shuts down. But Trump isn't shutting down the conversation. He's amplifying it, and he's taking it to places that make even his supporters uncomfortable. He's talking about denaturalization, revoking citizenship from people who become Americans and then spend their time undermining the country. He specifically called out a sitting congresswoman, and while he didn't name names, everyone knew he meant Ilhan Omar, saying, "You have a congresswoman who goes around telling everybody about our Constitution, and yet she supposedly came into our country by marrying her brother." Now, whether you agree with that or not, it raises a fascinating question. What are the obligations of citizenship? Is it purely a legal status, or does it come with expectations of loyalty, respect, and willingness to contribute to the common good? These aren't easy questions, and they make a lot of people uncomfortable. But Trump isn't afraid to ask them, and a lot of Americans, particularly those who remember when patriotism wasn't considered a dirty word, are nodding along. Here's the reality check we all need to face. The foreign-born population in the United States is now higher than at any point in American history. We're talking about 1 in 6 people living here being born somewhere else. Over 50 million people. And according to the data, over half of foreign-born households receive some type of government assistance. So when Trump talks about ending federal benefits for non-citizens or prioritizing reverse migration, he's speaking to a frustration that millions of Americans feel but are often afraid to voice publicly. But here's what really should concern you about all of this. These announcements aren't isolated policy decisions. They're part of a coordinated strategy that will reshape American foreign policy, immigration law, and social services for decades to come. Trump scheduled that national address about Venezuela. The asylum freeze has no end date. More enforcement actions are coming. Whether you support Trump or think he's dangerous, one thing is certain. We're living through a moment of enormous change. The choices being made right now will define the country our children inherit. And most Americans still have no idea what just hit them. The question isn't whether you agree with these policies. The question is whether you understand what they really mean for America's future. Because ready or not, that future is being written right now. One phone call and one policy announcement at a time.